In this lesson, we're going to talk about slope and learn what slope is. Our learning target is that we're going to be able to find the slope of a line when we get 2 points. And so what is slope exactly? What do I mean when I say slope? Well, slope tells us how steep a line is. So we're working with linear functions, and all of these lines are going to have different steepness. The higher the slope, the steeper the line is going to get, which means it's going to get more vertical. We can also call slope the rate of change, so it's how quickly something is changing. And that's going to be more useful when we start talking some real-world situations. But when we find slope, we're going to be looking, slope is the rise over the run. And what that means is that it's the change in our y values over the change in our x values. So if we're looking at a graph, we can find the slope by just counting how far we move up and down and how far we move left and right. So I'm going to start with this point down here at 1, 0, and I can count my rise. So let's write this down first. Let's remember that slope is our rise over our run. So let's find our rise first. So I'm going to count how many times we move up. So on this graph, I'm going to move up 1, 2, 3. And now I see I'm in line with this second point that we're looking at. So I'm going to say my rise is 3, and now I can find my run. So from here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I end up at that point. But this time, since I'm moving to the left, I need to make this negative to indicate we're going to the left. And so my run, we're going to say, is -3. And now I can divide these. So +3 divided by -3 means my slope is -1. Let's try one more here. So let's remember that slope is rise over run. And so I'm going to find my rise by counting upwards. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my rise is going to be 6, and that's going to be over my run. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my run is 5, and I'll keep that positive since we're going to the right. And so I would look to divide. 6 divided by 5 can't be simplified, so I'm going to say my slope is 6 over 5. Pause the video now and try this next graph on your own. Hopefully you tried it. So let's remember slope is our rise over our run. So let's start from the bottom and count up. We're going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my rise is going to be 5 over my run. This time I'm just going left 1, which means my run is -1. And 5 divided by -1 means my slope is -5. So now we've got different types of slopes. So we see this line and this line are going in different directions here. And so these are 2 of the 4 different kinds of slopes that we can have. And we've got this little shape we can use to memorize slopes. So draw this figure on your paper. And these are our 4 different types of slopes that we can have. If it's increasing like this means we're going to have a positive slope. If it's decreasing like this, we're going to have a negative slope. If it's a horizontal line, that means our slope is going to be 0. And when we have that, we're going to write that equation as y equals a number. And then last, if it's a vertical line, this is going to be undefined, and we're going to write that as x equals a number. And these are our 4 different types of slopes. And if we come back up real quickly, we can see this slope was positive, so the line was increasing like this, while this slope was negative, so that line is decreasing like that. And so now we want to know how to find the slope even if we're not given a graph like we were. So we can find the slope from just 2 points using this slope equation, we call it. We're always going to use the letter m for slope. I don't know why they picked that letter, but that's kind of the universal letter for slope. And so it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so our ordered pairs are going to be lined up like this, right? And so remember we said our rise was our change in our y values, and our run was our change in our x values. And so to see the change, we're finding the difference between these, and so we're going to be subtracting those values. So we can do an example where we're going to find the slope of this line. And so let's remember our points are written as x, y. And so we can pick one of these to be our number 1 and one of these to be our number 2. So I'll say that this is going to be x1 and y1 here, and this will be my x2 and y2. And so I'll set up my slope formula now. My y2 is -5. I'm subtracting this from my y1, which is 9. So I have -5 minus 9 on top. And so now I'm going to go back. My x2, I don't know why I keep doing that. My x2 is 2, and I'm going to subtract it from my x1. And my x1 this time is -1. So even though I have that negative there, I need to add in another -1. Okay, this subtraction sign is always going to be there. And then if you have a negative, then you'll end up with 2 negatives here. And now we're just going to simplify this fraction by just subtracting across the top and the bottom. So -5 minus 9, those signs are the same, so I'm going to keep it negative, and now I'm just going to add my 2 numbers. 9 plus 5 would give me 14. And now on the bottom, these 2 negatives will make a positive. So 2 plus 1 gives me 3, which means my slope is -14 over 3. And so if we think about what this line would look like, it's got a negative slope, so it would be going in this direction. Pause the video now and see if you can find the slope of a line between -514 and -1,2. Hopefully you paused it and tried it. So remember, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so we're going to set up, let's call this x1, y1, and this can be x2, y2. And so now my y2 is 2 minus my y1 is 14 over x2 is -1 minus my x1 is -5. So now we can simplify this. 2 minus 14 would give me a -12. And again, now I'm going to add -1 plus 5 is going to give me 4. And we can divide this now. We can simplify this a little further. -12 divided by 4 gives us -3. So once again, this line would look like this direction. Now before we end the video, I want to show you a trick in Desmos on how you can simplify these fractions. So let's jump over there now. So here we are in Desmos, and we're going to find the slope of the line that passes through -1, 9 and 2, -5. And so we already found it. We found it was -14 over 3, but we're going to see how Desmos can help us simplify once we have our equation set up here. So you can either click the question mark key on your computer or the division sign here, and that'll set up your fraction. So we just type in -5 minus 9, and then on the bottom, 2 minus -1. And it gives us this ugly decimal here. And for slope, it's not good to work with decimals. So we can come over here and click this fraction looking button, and it'll give us that simplified fraction, which matches up with what we found in our answer. So now let's try this second one. So -514 and -1,2, I'll make my fraction. So 2 minus 14 over -1 minus -5. And we see it simplifies us to 3, just like we got in our notes. So in this lesson, we learned how to find the slope of a line. We learned that we can count rise over run if we have a graph, or we can use a slope formula in order to find the slope between 2 lines by finding the difference in our y values over the difference in our x values. We also learned that we can plug this into Desmos and find our simplified fraction, our slope, there as well. And this has been our lesson over slope. Thanks for watching.